What is up, Solow Sportsers? I'm here at our Queens location to answer the question once and for all. Does the Dunlop SX300 for 2025 really spin as much as you think it does? Let's see it on court and see why Patrick Mouratoglou puts his name on a racket like this. In this situation, I decided to go with Head Hawk Power. First reason, purely cosmetic. Part two, I felt like this string has that great blend of a good amount of control, a little bit soft to offset the stiffness of the frame itself, still being spin friendly, which complements the spin friendly racket. Additionally, in terms of tension, I kept it slightly higher than my go-to tension, so I strung this up at 50 pounds. The Dunlop SX300 2025 is 300 grams, which equates to 10.6 ounces unstrung, with a swing weight of 318, making it 4 points head light, with a balance point of 13 inches. It has a 100 square inch head size, a standard length of 27 inches, an open 16 by 19 string pattern, and a beam that goes from 23 to 26 back down to 23 millimeters. The stock grip is the Dunlop Synthetic. It has a teal, yellow, and black cosmetic, and sports some great tech like Spin Boost XT grommets, VibraShield, and Sonicor Infinergy to provide a comfortable spinny experience. The 300 is a mere 5 grams lighter and 2 square inches larger than the 300 Tour, and sits above the 300 LS and 300 Lite in the SX lineup. For better or for worse, the first thing I always notice about rackets is the way they look. Now, what I really appreciate about this new Dunlop SX family is that they went for more of a teal cosmetic as opposed to the black or the white or sort of colors that I feel are overplayed. I feel like this is unique enough that you'll recognize it from 3 courts away. It's not super bright and obnoxious, even though there are those light yellow accents. I've obviously chosen to put a neon yellow overgrip on there as well. But I think cosmetically this racket's absolutely stunning. I think it's unique enough, and it also allows you to play with the string colors and string choices to make it coordinate and look really good out on court. Compared to the previous generation of this racket, I really think this is where my iPhone analogy really holds up well. Is there really a difference between the 16 and the 15 and the 14, and as you go back one generation at a time? I don't think so, but if you're someone who takes a lot of pictures or notices the titanium versus the glass back, then maybe you notice the difference. But I think this racket and the previous gen play very similarly, if not identically. I might say this one's felt a little plusher for me. I felt like the sweet spot was a little bigger, a little bit more dampening, but these are all things that could be just a little subjective. These are things that are definitely, could be, you know, the stringing, it could be if it was hot or cold that day, it could be if it's a new racket versus an older racket. So I think there's enough like margin for error when it comes to one physical racket versus another physical racket, as opposed to a generation of rackets versus another generation of rackets. So if you had the previous gen and you wanted to get a new racket, I think this is an easy buy now, super easy. Link in our description if you wanted to order one from us. However, if you were looking for something a little different or thought like, oh, I really needed something that's a little more comfortable, or oh, I need something that's got a little more control, I don't think you're really going to get it. I think this racket basically plays the same way as the previous gen, maybe just a little more dampened, but not enough for me to think this is like a whole new racket or a whole new lease on life. For me, this is what I love to describe as a guilty pleasure racket. So from the baseline, this is a racket where I can just take a nice, easy swing at the ball, to get easy depth, easy topspin, easy power. When I start going for more, or when my intensity level really picks up, I feel like I have to dial it back so that this racket doesn't do too much for me, or I have to jack my tension up a bit more. And these are sorts of things, especially jacking tension up in these sorts of rackets, is something that can lead to arm fatigue and tennis elbow and these sorts of things. So I try to avoid that. So for me, this is a super fun racket. So if I'm playing down a little bit, so maybe I just want an easier hit and I know I get to swing a little slower, this was super fun. Otherwise, great spin generation from the baseline, I felt like as long as I was, swinging cleanly, I felt the sweet spot was pretty large and pretty plush, which isn't always true for some of these more stiffer baseline rackets, but definitely was super fun from the baseline. While I definitely enjoyed this racket up at net, I felt like it was a bit of a one-trick pony. I felt like really the best thing I can do, and really the only thing I could do effectively, was hit deep drive volleys. It absorbed the pace really well, let me send it back with pace pretty easily. Whether they were hitting hard at me, hitting soft, I felt like driving anything deep, super easy. Where I ran into trouble, and maybe this is more of a tactical problem on my end than a racket deficiency here, when I was going for more of the touch, the feel, the drop shots, the sharp angles, those sorts of things, I didn't feel like this racket held up as much as I would have liked. Maybe it has to do with the larger head size, maybe it's the stiffness, I'm not sure. But definitely on the drive volleys, super fun, super easy, which is why I've definitely dubbed this racket, if you're gonna come to net, a crush and rush. This is one where you wanna hit a hard approach, come into net, put away an easy volley deep into the court before your opponent really has a chance to do much. Maybe there's a secondary volley to just like really slap the ball out of the court. But definitely a solid racket to volley with up at net, but probably not my first choice if I am a serve and volleyer or someone who spends most of his time at the net. Scored well in our Solow Sports graded review. As a spin-centric frame, this racket is catered towards players who have more modern game styles, whippier strokes, and enjoy grinding out longer points from the baseline. The ideal player for this racket has an NTRP rating of 3.5 or higher, likes to leverage the pace provided by the racket and others, but isn't afraid to inject some of their own pace from time to time, and hits with a variety of spins. While this is better suited to a two-handed backhand, this racket will work well for a one-handed player as well. Similar rackets from other brands include the Babolat Pure Aero, the Yonex V-Core 100, the Head Extreme MP, Technifiber T-Fight 300, and the Wilson Burn 100. I highly recommend you give this racket a try the next time you're looking to separate yourself from the rest of the pack. We hope you've enjoyed our review of the Dunlop SX300 for 2025. Let us know in the comments down below if you've tried this racket. Which ones do you like compared to it? Do you think it lives up to the hype? And as always, we look forward to seeing you in the next video.